If partnerships are going to work, they have to be win-win for everybody. Everybody has to win, and sometimes that means that one party and another has to give up a little bit so that all parties can win. And that has to ebb and flow. You have to be a little flexible and make sure in total over time, everyone makes a fair contribution and everyone receives a fair return.
Do you want to just start off and tell me like what the Right Place does and what your role there is?
Sure. So the Right Place engages in economic development type of activities. So attracting businesses to the region, retaining businesses to the region. And then my role, I serve as our Vice President of Manufacturing Services. And I'll say, my other hat is with an organization called the Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center, MMTC. So, I'm fortunate to be able to see both worlds where I can help companies with their economic development, but I can also help focus on manufacturing companies, help them diversify and grow through the services that we have.
How is that different from where you started?
Actually, I started in technology. But what that did, it allowed me to bring a skill to the auto business that I started with. It was a family business for a long, long time, and I wanted to bring something to the business besides my last name. Grateful for the 25 years I had there. Just really blessed and just had a marvelous set of experiences that I'm so grateful for. One of those being learning how to partner effectively. If partnerships are going to work, they have to be win-win for everybody. Everybody has to win, and sometimes that means that one party and another has to give up a little bit so that all parties can win. And that has to ebb and flow. You have to be a little flexible and make sure in total over time, everyone makes a fair contribution and everyone receives a fair return.
So I love the partnership angle, right? Because that's kind of what makes it healthy.
Yeah.
Right? The employees that come in every day. What's needed there for success in order to have a healthy company? What does that look like from your perspective?
I think strategy and culture have to go hand in hand. There's comments on, one is better than the other, but, one enables the other, absolutely. Without a strategy but good culture, the team's just going to spin in circles. Even if they love doing it, they're still going to spin in circles. If you have a great strategy but no way to execute, it's going to sit on a shelf.
I have a strategically minded person that's running a company, and culture is missing. What do you say to that person?
Well, that last 5% of execution is what makes something great. And you can't buy culture. What I'd tell that leader is, don't expect the returns you're expecting in your strategic plan if you don't have any culture. Right? Because it's going to be less than you expect most likely. Simply because when you reach those points, when you have to dig deep in order to overcome and achieve those things you set out to do, if you don't have people who are all in, they're not going to do it in a timely manner or with a level of excellence that's required to achieve what you set out to do.
I love that. We've all heard that phrase, right? Nobody wants to work.
Yeah.
Is that a symptom of culture, or is that a symptom of purpose?
Well, I think it's a symptom of both, frankly. And here's why I say that. Anyone who may have the mindset, because even I've had that too, like, I really don't want to get up and go to work today.
Sure.
It's not persistent, right? And I muscle through it because I feel an obligation to do it. But I think it's a part of the human experience to kind of be aversive to the things that don't make you feel good. You know what I mean? So, and I think a company has to earn the right every day to have employees. They have to earn the right that their employees come in every day. And it's a two-sided equation, right? Employees have to do their part too. But without a strategy, without a purpose, without a mission, it's hard to have team members get aligned with what their daily work is. And even if that strategy is high level, you still have to break it down to say, your work is meaningful. And here's why it's meaningful.
Yeah.
And taking those steps to understand that they are important as people, their roles are important in accomplishing the mission, and defining what winning is. Naturally, humans want to win, but when there's inconsistency and accountability, when someone's pressured to do something and that same pressure for an equally important activity or equally important outcome isn't consistent, The high performers are going to say, well, why am I high performing? Why am I putting in 12, 13 hours a day when I'm not recognized, and person B can get away with doing 7 hours a day and have no one say anything?
What do you say to somebody where, hey, I put my nose to the grindstone. I didn't get the promotion. I'm going to go somewhere else.
The first thing I'm going to do is be honest with them on why. If there's a skill set that's needed to accomplish a certain strategic initiative, and now that role needs a skill it didn't need before, it's possible that person didn't have that skill, but I feel obligated to tell people what I really think and to tell people what I know, simply because they have put in time and effort and they deserve that honesty. Yeah. As hard as it is to stomach, right? As hard as it is to hear, they deserve that honesty so they can then choose, do they want to develop and advance themselves? Or, like many times, maybe it's time for a change. And that's okay too.
If you withhold that honesty, does it make it harder to give it later?
I think so. Stephen Covey has kind of that mindset, right? Where you have to have the emotional bank account, Phil. I have to earn your trust every day. Right? And it's easy to lose trust. And I look at trust isn't either you have it or you don't. It's a continuum. When I'm walking a manufacturing floor with a leader, what I look for first is how do they interact with the team? If they're walking the floor, and even though I might be their guest, and they're stopping to say hi to an operator or a high-low driver, they know their name, and they've built that level of culture that they are a team, that the people around them are people. Right? They're not just a resource. They're not just an asset. They are people, and they are choosing to come in every day, right, and do that work. And he sees them, or he or she sees them as people, right? And he recognizes they're an important part of the team as well. I can immediately tell when when culture exists, a positive culture exists, and a culture of teamwork exists. And that's kind of the first telltale for me. Do they have a culture of cooperation, of that every role is important, we're all in this together kind of thing. But what I don't know in the beginning is how transparent are they with financials? How transparent are they when they lose a big contract? How transparent are they when the unfortunate things or the uncertain things happen? Do they rally the team and inform them and get their insights? So there are things that are hard to see just with one pass-through or even a couple pass-throughs. But you can also observe when you're walking through a facility or a plant, do they have their goals posted? If they have their mission and values and guiding principles posted, the person you're with, do you see them demonstrating them? And when I can match those up with what they've told me and what I see, then I'm going to say, that they probably have a pretty good culture. And even some of those other things, if they're not transparent with their financials, maybe there's a good reason why. Now, I don't know that, and I don't want to judge. But it also doesn't mean they're not working on it, because culture's like lean. Lean is a journey, right? You never become lean. You're always working towards being leaner. And culture's the same thing. You never all of a sudden achieve culture. So maintaining culture, and now you have incremental changes, and it could be being transparent with financials. It could mean, trying to get consent from the organization for big decisions, or at least a litmus test from them on what it means. So, but in general, I just look do their words and what they say the organization is all about. Do they behave in that way? And when I see that connection, then I have at least a pretty good feeling that their culture is pretty solid.
Man, I love all those layers. Well,
and I've made the mistake. I've failed multiple times at becoming a leader. I mean, you don't just start out being a good leader. You have to practice. And unfortunately, there's going to be some things you do well and some things you don't do well. And in good cultures, people will call you out on it, which I appreciate more now, as I've made plenty of mistakes. And it's not personal, right? I'd much rather have someone tell me I have lettuce in my teeth. Before walking around all day with lettuce in my teeth. So if I'm doing something that I can do better, please tell me. But that's hard to do. The more and more responsibility you have, and the larger and larger title that you have, it's harder for team members to tell the leader, when they have lettuce in their teeth. But I tell you what, it's a void. And when you have a team that is willing to do that, your ability to lead becomes so much more impactful, because every human has blind spots, right? Everybody does. And to have people around you who will tell you what you need to hear is way better than having people who will just tell you what you think you need to hear or what they think you want to hear, right? That really doesn't help.
There's a lot of family businesses in West Michigan. What sort of advice do you give to somebody that's looking to build their culture?
Yeah. I think that's a really good question, and there is a unique dynamic in family businesses, and having gone through it myself. I'm going to answer it in regards to the family members. Oftentimes a family business was started by, a matriarch or patriarch of the family. They were the sole proprietor, and maybe they had a brother or someone in there, but kind of generation one, they started the business. And when you start the business, you've seen everything from, the first widget you put together in your garage up to, visiting the 5 plants you might have around the Midwest.
Yeah.
They saw that whole thing, and they were part of all the activities that went into getting to that point in time. That experience is incredibly difficult to replicate. But when I said I had a marvelous set of experiences in industry, I was afforded the opportunity to see a variety of jobs. So I think when it comes to the second generation and the third generation and the fourth generation, what families can't shy away from is whoever is in that and deciding they want to be part of the family business, and if they want to pass it down through the generations, you have to see a variety of roles. You have to understand how the team is working on a day-to-day basis, and that takes time. So don't let impatience get in the way of learning the business. I mean, it took me 15 years to learn the auto business. And so that's, to me, that's kind of pivotal number one. Be willing to have a variety of experiences so that you can relate to the different groups in the organization. And that allows you to set a culture that meets the needs of your teams, wherever they're at. The second thing that I think is vitally important is do the hard jobs. Because guess what? If you want to sit in the chair, someday it's going to be.
Yeah.
And you got to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Finding mentors who will help you along the way. I've been extremely blessed in my career to have great mentors. And that is not just people I report to, but people who are in my reporting chain that I learned from as well. I think that matters. Sometimes leaders feel they have to know it all, and that's not the case. Learning from the people that you're leading is an incredible gift.
Yeah.
Right. So I think they can be mentors too. It doesn't have to be some super established, successful person. Mentors is someone who can help you on your journey in whatever capacity that might be. So looking for mentors along the way, doing the hard jobs and doing many jobs, I think gets the next generation of family businesses prepared to have that business perpetuate itself through the generations.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I've just, time and time again, I'm interviewing somebody from a family business where mom, dad, somebody shortcutted junior up the ranks.
Yeah.
And now people are reporting to him, and there's a lot of frustration. Right?
Yeah.
And you're saying there's not a path where that works sustainably. Yeah.
And I think that's where there's organizations around, like the Family Business Alliance. I was a part of that, and in fact, I helped moderate a next gen group there. But what I like about the mindset of that group, many elements they touch on with this, but they also promote succession. Because especially going from Gen 1 to Gen 2, there comes a point in time where the Gen 1 leader says, you know what, I think it's time to hang up the skates. And if the forethought, getting the next generation prepared, hasn't gone, it takes years. And some will say, all right, I want to make this transition 5 years from now. You can probably do that, assuming that the business is at a scale where either they've had the experiences where another 5 years will give them the really hard experiences, cap off their robust set of experiences, and make sure they have mentors along the way. That's doable. But say, hey, next year I think I'm going to move to Florida permanently. You're putting the company at risk. All the people who have given their time, energy, and lives to protect their livelihood. And their trust.
Yeah.
And the next generation, you're doing both parties a disservice by making that decision without some intentional succession that goes along with that.
Yeah.
And Kyle, when when I left industry, you know, I took, I don't know, almost a year off. And recently I heard on some news thing promoting people in midlife, take a gap year. Take time to re-find yourself. And I subscribe to that 100%. Now I was afforded the opportunity to do that with some planning and some goodwill and things like that. I was afforded the ability to do that. But it helped refresh me as a person and gave me that fire in my belly again to want to do good things in the world. I was getting burned out. Burnout's a real thing.
It is, yeah.
And not only did I find time to recenter myself, I came to the realization that me as a person, what do I like to do? You know, what drives me? Back to what motivates someone. I refound myself as Peter, not as, you know, Peter with a big title or Peter with this company, but just Peter. You know, and here's the things that I want to do in my life.
What would you tell yourself at 25?
Learn from the past, number one. Right, the things that have happened even before I was alive. History is a great teacher as well. Let's make new mistakes.
Yeah.
Right, let's learn from the new stuff that we're trying, the new ambitions. So if we learn from history, we can accelerate, I think, the advancement, frankly, of humanity, because we're not making the same mistakes over and over and over and over and over. And sometimes we do that, and we allow ourselves to do that. So first is learn from the past. The second one is live in the moment. And why that's important, a lot of what we're talking about now, life is filled with joy. Mm-hmm. I mean, even in the hardest of times, this life is a blessing, right? When we've experienced challenging times and worked through them, when we've experienced successes and we celebrate them, and the things that are in between. I mean, nothing in this life is static. And we're going to have times that are good, and we're going to have times that are bad. We're going to have times of certainty, and we're going to have times of uncertainty. And those are completely out of our control. Mm-hmm. And so enjoying the moment that you're in, however hard or whatever it is, having that perspective that everything ends. Everything ends at some point. The good times will end, and you're going to get some challenging times. But the challenging times end too. It's kind of what makes life exciting. Finding joy today, learning from the past, and then whatever comes, embrace it.